another recorded lecture on the revised corporation code. So we'll deal today with the topic powers of corporations, incidental powers, and ultra vires doctrine. So as you all know, the powers of the corporation are exercised by the board. Okay, so due to the artificial nature of the corporation, it can only act through its board, which is the body that manages the corporation. So what are the powers of a corporation? So the powers of the corporation could be categorized into three: express powers, implied powers, and incidental powers. And could express powers of a corporation could further be classified into two: the general and specific powers. Now, before we proceed, let's again emphasize the rule of the limited capacity of the corporation. A corporation could only act within the scope of its authority, meaning the scope of the powers conferred by law, these express, implied, and incidental powers, as well as those provided in its articles of incorporation. Otherwise, its action is called ultra vires. Let's look at the powers provided by law. Let's start with the express powers. Okay, express powers of a corporation are provided in the revised corporation code. They are called express because they are expressly granted by law and of course the articles of incorporation. These powers will enable corporations to perform activities necessary for their lawful operation. So you can find all the express powers in the revised corporation code. Now, if you look closely at the provisions of the revised corporation code, the express powers are divided into two: general and specific. The general powers are found in section 35. Okay. These include the power to sue and be sued in its corporate name, perpetual existence, adopt and use a corporate seal, the power to amend its articles of incorporation, adopt, amend, or repeal corporate bylaws, issue or sell stocks and admit members, engage in transactions involving real and personal property, enter into partnerships, joint ventures, and other commercial agreements, make reasonable donations for public welfare, and establish pension and retirement plans for its employees. So all of these are expressly granted by law. These are the express powers. Okay, let's discuss each power briefly. Okay, to sue and be sued in its corporate name. So what is the legal basis of this express general power, section 35? So every corporation has the power to sue and be sued in its corporate name. So in other words, it highlights the separate personality of the corporation. The corporation can prosecute in its own name and stead its rights. And as a consequence, any liability of the corporation must be directed towards the corporation and not the people behind it. So this provision is crucial as it establishes the corporation as a legal person capable of engaging in legal actions. So the ability to sue allows the corporation as a separate legal entity to enforce its rights, such as, for example, collecting debts or seeking damages for breach of contract. In the case of Laureano Investment and Development Corporation versus CA, Supreme Court emphasized that the corporation must act under its registered name, okay, to maintain its legal personality in court. So is to avoid confusion, it must sue under its registered name. Okay, as the court might be, or the public might be confused as to who is the person. So the converse situation is, the reverse situation is, well, a corporation is open to suits. It can be held accountable for its actions. In Lanuza Jr. versus BF Corporation, Supreme Court ruled that the distinction between corporation and its directors may be disregarded in cases involving allegations of bad faith, okay, allowing for the inclusion of directors in arbitration proceedings. So in this particular case, you link again the two basic doctrines, the doctrine of separate personality, which by consequence allows a corporation to be the subject of litigation. But if the corporation is just being used as a shield to commit crime or to do acts of bad faith, then the people behind the corporation may be held liable, okay, under the doctrine of piercing the veil. So the power to sue and be sued is a critical aspect of a corporation's legal identity, okay, enabling it to operate effectively within the legal framework. Some other important jurisprudential standards in the case of Metropolitan Bank and Trust Company versus Salazar Realty Corporation 2022, there's a need, okay, to have a board authorization. Usually, okay, you need a secretary's certificate and a board resolution so that representatives in the suit, they may actually represent the interested corporation. So in this case, the court held that a case instituted by a corporation without board authorization is subject to the dismissal for failure to state a cause of action. So if someone appears in court and he is not the proper party, he's not, he does not have the necessary authorization, then he cannot represent someone. So he has no cause of action. He has no right to invoke. He has no right that was violated. And therefore, he cannot institute the case. That's why, okay, to represent a corporation, you need a board authorization. Okay. In Shipside Incorporated versus CA, again, the Supreme Court ruled that the absence of proof of the authorization from the board will lead to the dismissal of a case. So in actual cases, tinitignan yan palagi sa pleadings. Meron bang secretary's certificate and board resolution allowing this natural person to represent the corporation? So kung wala, the case will be dismissed. So while it is true that a corporation can litigate under its own name, there is such a thing as a derivative suit. Okay? Derivative suit, where stockholders may bring such suit on behalf of the corporation. And this happens when, okay, the board is involved in wrongdoings or refuses to act. So if the board, which is the tool, the mechanism by which a corporation can act, would not do anything, silent about the violations on the rights of the corporation, then a derivative suit can be filed by stockholders for and in behalf of the corporation. Like in the case of Ago Realty and Development Corporation, the Supreme Court explained that derivative suits allow stockholders to enforce corporate causes of action in the interest of equity. So again, derivative suit is an exception to this rule in the sense that instead of the corporation who will directly file the suit through its board, it would be the stockholders or the people behind the corporation who will prosecute the cause of action of the corporation. Now, if, for example, a corporation who is properly represented filed a complaint, but the complaint was not verified, it was not verified, will that justify the dismissal of the case? Sabi dito sa kaso ni Republic of the Philippines versus Colbrine International Philippines, that aspect, that insufficiency in the pleading, walang verification, could be cured the absence of the verification and certification in the pleading is not fatally defective. So this is a topic in remedial law, but it's still connected to the subject. So the court in this case noted that verification, while it ensures good faith of the filing party, this may be corrected if lacking. So basta authorize yung representative ng corporation, this defect may be corrected or cured. Let's talk about the power of a corporation to have perpetual existence. Well, gone were the days that corporations can have only a maximum of 50 years of existence. Now, under the revised code, corporations can have perpetual existence unless its articles of incorporation would provide for a lesser term. So the change modernizes corporate governance as there is flexibility and stability for the corporate business. Legal basis is Section 11. Okay? A corporation is presumed to have perpetual existence unless otherwise stated in its articles of incorporation. Okay? And how about those corporations whose terms under the old code already expired? These corporations whose terms expired may apply for revival. Okay? And by revival, they can get already perpetual existence unless in their move for revival, they specified another term. So the default term of a corporation, the duration of its lifespan is perpetual. That's the default term already. So example of how a corporation can exercise this power. Okay, for newly incorporated corporation, meaning those formed under the RCC, if a corporation is created now in 2025 and its articles of incorporation does not specify the corporate term, hindi niya sinabi kung 50 years mag-exist, then by default, ABC Corporation, in this example, will have perpetual existence. That's the default term. It can operate indefinitely, hindi na kailangang magpa-renew unless the corporation would voluntarily dissolve itself or under situations where a corporation may be dissolved. Now, how about application of this authority to have perpetual existence for corporations which were incorporated, were formed before the RCC? How will this provision come into play? So in the case of existing corporations with a fixed term, like here, XYZ Corporation was incorporated in the year 2000, and as per its articles of incorporation, it has a 25-year term. Now, under the revised corporation code, it is deemed to have perpetual existence. So basta existing pa rin siya during the passage of the RCC, automatic it is deemed to have perpetual existence now, unless its stockholders would vote in a meeting to retain the original term. So put otherwise, paano kung walang ginawa yung mga stockholders ngayong 2025 and they just let the term of the corporation lapse? 25 years na kasi itong XYZ Corporation since it was established in 2000, the year 2000. Wala silang ginawa ngayong taon na to. Maglalaps na yung term nila. Since they are still existing during the passage of the revised corporation code, that corporation is deemed to now have perpetual existence. So if XYZ Corporation does not notify SEC of its decision to retain its 25-year term, then automatically it will have perpetual existence. Dito naman, nag-expire na yung term corporation, DEF Corporation, nag-expire yung term niya after the passage of the revised corporation code. So it has a 50-year term that expired in 2020. In 2025, its stockholders decided to to revive the corporation. So DEF Corporation may apply for revival with SEC. Okay? But take note of this, pag ni-revive ang corporation, it doesn't mean that all its liabilities are erased. Kung ma-revive yan, not only are its rights revived, but also its liabilities, okay, and obligations will be revived. Adopt and use a corporate seal. So, pwede na magkaroon ng corporate seal ang corporation, but that is only optional. Okay? So, the corporation may adopt a corporate seal. This corporate seal is traditionally used to authenticate documents, meaning to show that this document really emanated from the corporation. Although this power is optional, or the exercise of this power is optional. Okay, amend its articles of incorporation. Well, the articles of incorporation is a very important document as it is, well, basically the fundamental, okay, rule or the fundamental policy of the corporation. Okay? It's like the constitution of a corporation. Yeah. It's the fundamental law of a corporation. Now, the amendment of the articles of incorporation is a very important power as it allows for the corporation to adjust, adapt to the needs of the corporation. So a corporation can amend their articles to reflect changes in name, purpose, capital stock, and other key aspects. And this amendment requires approval from the shareholders as well as reportorial compliance with the SEC. Okay. So under Section 15, the code, a corporation may amend its articles of incorporation for legitimate purposes following these requirements. So kung mag-amend ang corporation, ito palagi ang titignan, okay? Approval from the board and approval from the stockholders or members. So, as far as approval by the board, anong kailangang vote para sinabi nating may approval by the board? You need majority vote of the board. Now, on the part of stockholders, when do we say that there is approval by the stockholders or members? So you need this number of votes, okay, at least 2/3. For stock corporations, at least 2/3 of the outstanding capital stock. For non-stock corporations, at least 2/3 of the members. And then you need also to submit, okay, to the Securities and Exchange Commission the amendment, which must be certified under oath by the corporate secretary and majority of the directors or trustees. So ito, isasubmit yan, yung amendments duly certified to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, after submission, anong mangyayari? Well, the SEC may approve or make some recommendations or deny the same. So the amendments, okay, take effect upon SEC approval. Okay? That will be the effectivity of the amendments, hindi immediately. Okay? You need SEC approval. Now, what if the SEC does not do anything, does not act on the amendments submitted by the corporation? Then, under the law, kung nag-lapse yung 6 months from filing and the SEC does not act on the application where the corporation has not contributed anything that caused the delay, then the lapse of this period, 6 months, would mean that the SEC approved already the application for the amendments. So in action for 6 months, it means SEC approved. So amendments may be brought about by change in corporate name, okay, like here. Now, take note of this case, Philippine First Insurance Company Incorporated versus Hartigan. So kung napalitan ba yung pangalan ng corporation, does it mean na ibang corporation na yan? The answer is no. Okay, the change of name does not dissolve the corporation. Merely amended a portion of its articles and its identity remains the same. It retains its original identity. Many corporations resort to this to evade liability. But in this case, it's very clear, change of name does not dissolve the corporation, but it retains its original identity. Amendment is done also when the corporation wants to change its corporate term. And the amendments could be done also if a stock corporation would like to increase its authorized capital stock. So in all these situations, in all these examples, ano ulit yung requirements para magkaroon ng amendment? Approval by the board, approval by stockholders, and submission to SEC of the documentary requirements. So, i-apply mo yung amendments for approval. So, kung in-approve ng board, in-approve ng stockholders, will the amendments already take effect immediately? The answer is no. The effectivity of the amendments would be from the time of the approval of SEC. Another express general power, adopt, amend, or repeal corporate bylaws. Dito, articles of incorporation. Dito naman, corporate bylaws ang pwedeng i-adapt, amend, or repeal. Now, what's the difference between articles of incorporation and corporate bylaws? Okay. Well, corporate bylaws serve as the internal rules that govern the management and operations of a corporation, dealing or detailing the rights and responsibilities of its members, directors, and officers. So yung corporate bylaws, internal rules yan. It's binding to the people inside the corporation, but not binding to the people outside the corporation. So for a person to be bound by the corporate bylaws, a third person to be bound by the corporate bylaws, dapat talagang alam niya. But if there is no evidence that that third person knows the corporate bylaws of a corporation, then it does not bind this third person. So what are the powers of a corporation regarding the adoption, amendment, or repeal of its bylaws? Under Section 45, the adoption of bylaws requires the affirmative vote of stockholders representing at least a majority of the outstanding capital stock or a majority of the members in the case of non-stock corporation. So if you look here, pag i-amend or mag-adapt ng corporate bylaws, ang required number of votes is majority. Majority of the outstanding capital stock or majority of the members. Also in Section 45, it says that the bylaws must be signed by the stockholders or members voting for them, and it must be filed with the commission, with the SEC for certification. Kailan ba dapat isa-submit tong corporate bylaws? Under the Revised Corporation Code, it could be submitted together with the Articles of Incorporation pag mag-a-apply for incorporation, or it could be submitted after. So it could be submitted before incorporation or after incorporation. Section 47 further stipulates that a majority of the board of directors or trustees, along with the owners of at least majority of the outstanding capital stock, may amend or repeal corporate bylaws or adopt new corporate bylaws. So kung titignan po natin, there's a difference on the voting requirements when we speak of bylaws and articles of incorporation. Kung may changes sa articles of incorporation, as it is the fundamental policy of the corporation, you need higher votes, 2/3. Pero pag sa corporate bylaws, pag may changes dyan, majority lang ang voting. Now, the amendment and adoption of corporate bylaws generally is done by the board and the stockholders. But the same could be done directly by the board if the stockholders will delegate this power to the board. So instead na dalawa sila na mag-act, meaning kailangan ng board approval, kailangan ng approval ng stockholder, this power to amend, adopt, repeal corporate bylaws may be done directly by the board if there was a prior delegation of power by the stockholders or members. Now, as to the delegation is done when stockholders who represent at least two-thirds of the outstanding capital stock will delegate this to the board. So the board can now exercise the power directly. Okay. In Loyola Grand Villas Homeowners, okay, South Association Incorporated versus CA, the Supreme Court emphasized that the bylaws are essential for the corporation's governance and that failure to adopt them can lead to problems with corporate operations. This case highlighted that while the law requires the filing of bylaws, it does not automatically dissolve the corporation for non-filing. So paano kung hindi nakapag-submit ang corporation ng corporate bylaws niya? What will be the effect on the status of, well, you can argue that the corporation can become a de facto corporation as there is no complete compliance with the requirements of the law. Conclusion, the power to adopt, amend, or repeal bylaws is crucial for corporate governance, ensuring that internal rules align with the will of the members. So the revised corporation code provides a process on how to adopt, amend, repeal. Okay? So some reiteration para mapag-distinguish natin tong dalawang powers. Okay, this power to amend articles of incorporation deals with this fundamental document of the corporation, articles of incorporation. Kaya ang voting requirement for approval is for stockholders, two-thirds. Mas mataas. In corporate bylaws, this is an internal rule for corporations. As to the hierarchy, mas mababa siya kaysa sa articles of incorporation. That's why, in order to adopt, amend, or repeal, you need a majority vote only.